December 3rd, 2015, Bangkok, Thailand. At 6:30 a.m., Roger Thomas Clark wakes up in his modest apartment in Thailand's bustling capital. The 61-year-old Canadian has been living here for years, enjoying the beaches, the culture, and most importantly, the anonymity. He makes his morning coffee and checks his encrypted messages, just like he has every day for the past 4 years. What Clark doesn't know is that across the street, agents from Thailand's Crime Suppression Division are watching his every move. They've been there for weeks, building a case that stretches back to the most infamous dark web marketplace in history. At 7:45 a.m., as Clark steps out of his building, he's surrounded by armed officers. They place him in handcuffs and read him his rights in broken English. Clark looks confused, asking repeatedly what this is about. "Silk Road," one officer finally says in English. "You are Variety Jones." For the first time in years, the man who had been the shadow architect of the world's first dark web drug empire realizes his dance in the darkness is finally over. This is the story of the most mysterious figure in cybercrime history, a man who helped create an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars, influenced every major decision, and then vanished into the shadows for years. A man Ross Ulbricht called his mentor, his advisor, and his friend. This is the story of Variety Jones. Chapter 11, Somewhere in Cyberspace. Ross Ulbricht was struggling. His fledgling marketplace, Silk Road, was gaining attention after a Gawker article, but with fame came problems. Security holes, server issues, and the constant pressure of running what was becoming the world's most notorious website. That's when a message appeared in his inbox from a user calling himself Variety Jones. "You have a major security hole in your site," the message read. It wasn't a threat, it was help. VJ, as he would come to be known, had spotted a vulnerability that could have brought down the entire operation. According to Ross Ulbricht's own journal, found on his laptop after his arrest, this was the moment everything changed. Around this time, Variety Jones showed up. This was the biggest and strongest-willed character I had met through the site thus far. But who was Variety Jones? To the Silk Road community, he was a marijuana connoisseur, a seed vendor who knew every strain and could tell you exactly how to cultivate the perfect plant. He posted over 300 times on the Silk Road forums, sharing expertise and building trust. To Ross Ulbricht, he was something much more valuable, a mentor. "He has advised me on many technical aspects of what we are doing," Ulbricht wrote in his journal. "Helped me speed up the site and squeeze more out of my current servers. He also has helped me better interact with the community around Silk Road, delivering proclamations, handling troublesome characters, running a sale, changing my name, devising rules, and on and on." But VJ's most significant contribution would be a suggestion that would define Silk Road forever. In their private chat logs, recovered from Ulbricht's computer, we can see the exact moment when internet history was made. "You need to change your name from admin to Dread Pirate Roberts," Variety Jones wrote to Ulbricht. The suggestion was genius. In the 1987 film The Princess Bride, the Dread Pirate Roberts was revealed to be not one person, but a title passed down from person to person. Each Roberts would eventually retire and hand over the name to a successor, creating the legend of an immortal pirate. The Dread Pirate Roberts name would better hide Ulbricht's identity and create a sense that, like the fictional character, multiple people had held the title, prosecutors would later explain. It gave the operation an air of mystery and continuity that would outlast any individual. Ross Ulbricht embraced the name, and Dread Pirate Roberts was born. But while DPR became the public face of Silk Road, Variety Jones remained in the shadows, pulling strings and making decisions that would shape the entire operation. In their chat logs, spanning over 100 pages, we see the evolution of their relationship. VJ wasn't just an advisor, he was the power behind the throne. "This whole thing has been on a wing and a prayer," Ulbricht confided to VJ. "Besides basic PHP and HTML, I've learned everything on the fly." "Just thank FSM," VJ replied, using internet slang for Flying Spaghetti Monster. "I've been incredibly blessed," Ulbricht responded. "I was a hair's breadth from going to jail before the site even launched." While Ross Ulbricht was the public face of Silk Road as Dread Pirate Roberts, Variety Jones operated as what prosecutors would later call his right-hand man, an invisible CEO guiding every aspect of the operation. VJ helped craft Silk Road's public relations strategy, writing proclamations and managing the community. He advised on technical infrastructure, security protocols, and even helped Ulbricht develop contingency plans for succession and legal protection. But perhaps most importantly, VJ helped transform Ulbricht's mindset from that of a small-time entrepreneur to the leader of a criminal empire. "He helped me get my head straight regarding legal protection, cover stories, devising a will, finding a successor, and so on," Ulbricht wrote. "He's been a real mentor." The relationship was so close that VJ knew details about Ulbricht's personal life that even his closest friends didn't know. When Ulbricht traveled to Thailand, a trip he mentioned to VJ in their chats, he described experiencing the beaches and jungles. VJ operated under multiple identities: Variety Jones, VJ, Simon, and plural of Mongoose. He would periodically kill off his personas and create new ones to maintain operational security. "Variety Jones is dead," he wrote to Ulbricht in one chat. "Poor fella, no more seed biz for him." But death and rebirth were just tools in VJ's arsenal. What mattered was the influence he wielded over every aspect of Silk Road's operations. The relationship between VJ and Ulbricht took a sinister turn in 2013 when they faced their first major crisis. Curtis Green, a Silk Road administrator known as Chronic Pain, had been arrested by federal agents and his account compromised. Worse, someone had stolen a significant amount of Bitcoin from the site. In their chat logs, we can see VJ's immediate response. "At what point in time do we decide we've had enough of someone's shit and terminate them? We're playing with big money with serious people, and that's the world they live in." What followed was Variety Jones convincing Ross Ulbricht to order his first murder for hire. VJ didn't just suggest violence, he pushed for it, arguing it was necessary for their survival. "We're playing for keeps," VJ wrote after Ulbricht agreed to the hit. "This just drives it home. I'm perfectly comfortable with the decision, and I'll sleep like a lamb tonight and every night hereafter." Unbeknownst to them, Curtis Green's death was faked by federal agents as part of their investigation. But VJ's influence had pushed Ulbricht across a line from which there was no return. "If you had balked, I would have seriously reconsidered our relationship," VJ told Ulbricht after the supposed murder was confirmed. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Neff would later describe VJ's attitude as showing complete disregard for human life, noting that for Clark, the question of whether to end another man's life was simple and stress-free. October 2013, San Francisco Public Library. When FBI agents arrested Ross Ulbricht in the Glen Park Library, seizing his laptop and ending the Silk Road era, one crucial figure was nowhere to be found: Variety Jones. While Ulbricht was taken into custody and faced a life sentence, VJ simply vanished. The man who had helped build the empire, influenced every major decision, and pushed DPR toward violence had seemingly disappeared into thin air. For 2 years, VJ remained one of the most wanted fugitives in cybercrime. The FBI knew he existed. They had 100 pages of chat logs proving his central role in Silk Road's operations. They knew his aliases: Variety Jones, VJ, Seaman, plural of Mongoose. But they didn't know who he really was or where he had gone. The search for Variety Jones became one of the most intensive manhunts in cybercrime history. Federal agents followed digital breadcrumbs across multiple countries, analyzed writing patterns, and tracked financial transactions. But VJ had covered his tracks well. During Ulbricht's trial in 2015, prosecutors repeatedly mentioned the mysterious Variety Jones, describing him as Ulbricht's mentor and a key architect of Silk Road. But his physical absence from the courtroom only added to his legend. Who was this phantom who had helped create the dark web's most notorious marketplace? Where had he gone? And would he ever be found? The breakthrough came through painstaking digital forensics. Investigators noticed that Variety Jones had made a crucial operational security mistake early in his criminal career. Before VJ became security conscious and started using only encrypted communications, he had used a Gmail account, varietyjones@gmail.com. This account was linked to communications on bodybuilding forums, where he had first started selling marijuana seeds to fitness enthusiasts. By analyzing the writing style, posting patterns, and technical knowledge demonstrated in these early posts, investigators built a profile. They were looking for a Canadian man in his 50s or 60s, likely living outside North America, with extensive knowledge of marijuana cultivation and computer systems. The investigation led them to Roger Thomas Clark, a Canadian citizen who had been living in Thailand for several years. Clark matched the profile perfectly. He was in his early 60s, had fled Canada years earlier, and was known in expatriated circles as someone with significant computer skills. But proving that Clark was Variety Jones required more than circumstantial evidence. Investigators spent months building their case, gathering evidence from multiple sources and working with Thai authorities to prepare for arrest. The final piece of the puzzle came from financial analysis. Investigators discovered cryptocurrency transactions that could be traced back to Clark, linking him directly to Silk Road's financial operations. On April 21, 2015, the US government filed a sealed complaint against Roger Thomas Clark, also known as Variety Jones, VJ, Simon, and plural of Mongoose. Roger Thomas Clark had built what he thought was the perfect hiding place. Living in Thailand under his real name, he maintained a low profile in the expatriate community. To his neighbors, he was just another retiree, enjoying the tropical lifestyle. But Clark's sense of security was an illusion. For months, he had been under surveillance by a joint task force of Thai police and US federal agents. On December 3, 2015, that surveillance ended with Clark's arrest outside his Bangkok apartment. The man who had been one of the most wanted cybercriminals in the world was finally in custody. Clark's arrest sent shockwaves through what remained of the dark web community. Variety Jones, the mysterious mentor who had helped create the Silk Road legend, was revealed to be a gray-haired Canadian grandfather living in Southeast Asia. But Clark wasn't going quietly. He immediately began fighting extradition to the United States, claiming he was being persecuted for his political beliefs about drug legalization. He made various claims during his detention, including allegations about corrupt FBI agents and offers to provide intelligence to the Thai government. For 2.5 years, Clark remained in Thai custody while legal battles raged over his extradition. During this time, he gave several interviews to journalists, maintaining his innocence and claiming he was being framed. In one interview with Ars Technica from his Thai prison cell, Clark appeared gaunt and stressed, weighing only 93 pounds. He described horrific conditions, including witnessing torture and sexual assault. June 15, 2018, JFK International Airport, New York. After losing his final appeal, Roger Thomas Clark was extradited to the United States. The man, who had once helped run a criminal empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars, arrived in shackles, weighing less than 100 pounds and suffering from multiple health problems. Clark was initially defiant, maintaining his innocence and claiming he was being prosecuted for his political beliefs about drug legalization. But as prosecutors laid out their evidence, the chat logs, the financial records, the technical analysis linking him to Variety Jones, Clark's defense began to crumble. On January 30, 2020, Clark finally accepted reality. Standing in a Manhattan federal courtroom, he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute narcotics and money laundering. In his plea agreement, Clark admitted to being Variety Jones, VJ, Simon, and plural of Mongoose. He acknowledged his role as Ross Ulbricht's trusted mentor and admitted to helping build and operate Silk Road from 2011 to 2013. But even in defeat, Clark maintained that his actions were motivated by a belief that drug prohibition caused more harm than drug use itself. "I just kept preaching to myself harm reduction," Clark told the judge. "That's how I got to sleep at night. I'm proud and ashamed at the same time." July 11, 2023, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, Federal Courthouse, Manhattan. Nearly 10 years after Silk Road's collapse, Roger Thomas Clark faced his final judgment. The 62-year-old Canadian, now frail and showing every year of his age, stood before Judge Sidney Stein for sentencing. Clark's defense attorney painted a picture of a man whose political beliefs had led him down a dark path. They described the horrific conditions of his detention in Thailand and New York, the health problems that had left him broken, and his genuine belief that he was fighting for a worthy cause. But prosecutors saw something different. They saw a man who had helped create the template for modern dark web drug trafficking, who had pushed a young idealist toward violence, and who had shown complete disregard for human life. Clark misguidedly turned his belief that drugs should be legal into material assistance for a criminal enterprise, Judge Stein said. These beliefs crossed over into patently illegal behavior. The sentence was harsh, but not unexpected. 20 years in federal prison, the maximum allowed under Clark's plea agreement. Clark, now 62 years old, would likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. In a dramatic moment during his sentencing statement, he turned to the sparse courtroom audience and said, "Everybody take a good look. This is probably the last time you see me before I get killed." Today, Roger Thomas Clark sits in federal prison, serving what amounts to a life sentence for his role as Variety Jones. The man who once helped create the dark web's most successful marketplace has been reduced to a number in the federal prison system. But VJ's influence extends far beyond his personal fate. The techniques he helped develop, the use of multiple identities, sophisticated operational security, and decentralized distribution networks became the blueprint for every dark web marketplace that followed. The dread pirate Robert's persona he suggested for Ross Ulbricht became one of the most famous aliases in internet history. The idea of a passed-down identity continues to influence dark web culture to this day. Most significantly, VJ's mentorship of Ross Ulbricht demonstrated the power of shadowy advisors in cybercrime. While Ulbricht became the face of Silk Road and received a life sentence, it was VJ who shaped many of the decisions that made the marketplace what it became. The Variety Jones case serves as a reminder that in the world of cybercrime, the most dangerous figures are often not the ones seeking fame or recognition. They're the puppet masters working in the shadows, pulling strings and shaping events while remaining invisible. Roger Thomas Clark spent years believing he was untouchable, hidden behind layers of encryption and false identities. But in the end, the same technology that enabled his crimes also provided the evidence needed to convict him. The mysterious mentor of Silk Road had finally been unmasked, but his legacy in the dark corners of the internet lives on.